Jake Thompson has always considered himself a rational person. Working as an engineer in the small town of Pine Creek, Oregon, he never believed in the supernatural. But one night changed everything. It was late fall. Jake had been working late on an important project and decided to take a shortcut home through the redwood forest. The full moon was illuminating the winding road when his pickup suddenly stalled. Cursing, Jake got out of the truck. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound, something between a howl and a growl. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. A massive figure stepped out of the darkness. At first, Jake thought it was a bear, but the creature straightened up on its hind legs. In the moonlight, he saw that it was something like a wolf, but about the size of a man. Panic gripped Jake. He started running through the woods, not looking for the road. Behind him, he could hear heavy breathing and the cracking of branches. The monster was chasing him. Jake reached the old forester's hut. Desperately, he pulled the door open. Fortunately, it was unlocked. Rushing inside, he slammed the door shut and leaned back against it, breathing heavily. There was silence. Then, a dull knock on the door. And then another. The creature was trying to break in. Jake looked around for a weapon and saw an old rifle on the wall. He grabbed it, but it was unloaded. The door cracked open. A furry paw with huge claws pushed through the crack. Jake hit the paw with the butt of the gun, and a painful squeal was heard. Suddenly, the creature retreated. Jake heard the sound of a motor. Someone was coming up the road. Headlights illuminated the cabin. The werewolf howled and disappeared into the woods. A moment later, there was a knock at the door. "Agent Sarah Moore, Ranger Service," a woman's voice said. "Are you all right?" Jake opened the door with trembling hands. A slender woman in a ranger uniform stood before him. "You won't believe what just happened to me," Jake exhaled. Sarah listened carefully to his story. "Mr. Thompson, you're not the first person to see this creature," she said seriously. "We've been hunting it for a long time. It looks like you just met the Pine Creek werewolf." The following weeks changed Jake's life forever. He joined a secretive group of werewolf hunters led by Sarah. They tracked down the monster, studied its habits, and prepared for the final battle. But the werewolf turned out to be more cunning than they thought. One night he attacked their camp. In a terrible battle, 2 hunters were killed. Jake miraculously survived but suffered deep wounds from the monster's claws. Sarah helped Jake recover. Feelings began to develop between them. But Jake noticed that strange changes were happening to him. He became stronger, more sensitive to smells and sounds. And when the full moon came, Emily Carter has always loved the outdoors. Even after moving from the big city to the small town of Millwood, she couldn't resist the temptation to explore the surrounding woods. Her parents warned her against walking alone, especially after people started disappearing in the neighborhood. But 18-year-old Emily was confident in her safety. One sunny autumn day, she decided to take a new route. Taking a backpack with water and a snack, Emily headed deep into the forest. She enjoyed the rustling of the leaves under her feet and the sound of birds singing. A few hours later, Emily realized she was lost. The sun was already sinking, and she still couldn't find her way back. Panic began to grip her when she heard branches snapping nearby. "Who's there?" Emily called out in a trembling voice. A tall man in dirty clothes stepped out from behind the trees. His long hair was tousled and his eyes shone with a wild look. "Are you lost, little one?" He wheezed, smiling in a way that sent shivers down Emily's spine. I'm just looking for my way home," she replied, trying to stay calm. "Oh, I can show you the way," the man said, taking a step toward her. "My name is Jack. Do you know what else they call me? The Ogre." Emily froze in horror. She had heard of the Ogre, a bandit who was suspected of disappearing people in these woods, but everyone thought it was an urban legend. Without waiting for an answer, Emily started running. She could hear the Ogre chasing her, his heavy breathing coming closer. The branches scratched her face and arms, but she didn't stop. Suddenly, Emily tripped over a root and fell. Before she could get up, the ogre grabbed her leg. "Not so fast, Yummy," he growled, pulling her toward him. Emily screamed and struggled, but the ogre was much stronger. He tied her hands and dragged her deeper into the forest. After a while, they reached an old hut. It was dark inside and stank of rot. The ogre threw Emily on the floor and began to light a fire in a large oven. "Do you know why they call me the ogre?" he asked, turning to her. "Because I really do eat people, and you will be my next meal." Emily tried to beg him, but the ogre just laughed. He began to prepare his terrible tools, telling her exactly how he was going to cook her. The hours dragged on endlessly. Emily lost hope of being rescued. She thought about her parents, how they would be looking for her, but she knew that no one would find her here. When night fell, the ogre began his horrific ritual. Emily screamed in pain and terror, but no one could hear her in the depths of the forest. The next morning, there was no trace of Emily Carter. The ogre was sitting by the dying fire, contentedly stroking his full belly. Search teams searched for Emily in the forest for a long time, but they never found her or the ogre's mysterious hut. The story of Emily's disappearance became another terrible legend of Millwood, and the ogre continued to hunt in the dark forests, waiting for his next victim. My name's Jake Reeves, and I'm about to tell you how I lost my soul in a boxing match with a demon. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but every word of it is true. Or I guess I should say I was, 17 years old, living in a run-down part of Detroit. Boxing was my escape, my ticket out of this neighborhood. I was good at it, too. State champion in my weight class. Our local gym had closed down, so I'd been practicing in this abandoned house on Elm Street. Place was a dump, but it had space for a heavy bag, and the neighbors didn't complain about the noise. It was a Friday night. I remember because I'd turned down plans with my girlfriend to train. Golden Gloves was coming up, and I needed to be ready. The house was extra creepy that night. Shadows seemed darker, the air felt thick, but I brushed it off. I had work to do. I was halfway through my routine when I heard it. A low growl, like a dog, but wrong somehow. I stopped, my fists still wrapped, sweat dripping down my face. "Hello?" I called out. Stupid, I know. But what else do you say? That's when I saw it. Emerging from the shadows was something. It looked almost human, but stretched. Its skin was a sickly gray, and its eyes glowed red in the dim light. But what really got me were its arms. 4 of them, rippling with muscles, ending in claws that could tear me apart. I wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of there, but my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen in place as this demon, stalked towards me. It spoke, its voice like gravel in a blender. "Jacob Reeves," it said. "I've been waiting for you." How did it know my name? My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. This couldn't be real. Maybe I'd hit my head. Maybe this was some messed up dream. The demon grinned, showing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "This is very real, Jacob. I've come to claim what's mine." I found my voice then. "What are you talking about? What do you want?" "Your soul, of course," it said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. It was promised to me long ago. That's when it clicked. The stories my grandmother used to tell me about how my great-grandfather had made a deal with a demon to become a champion boxer, how the demon would come to collect from his descendant. I'd always thought they were just scary bedtime stories. The demon must have seen the recognition in my eyes. "Ah, so you do know? Good. That will make this easier." I don't know where I found the courage, but somehow I managed to speak. "No," I said. "I won't let you take my soul. I've worked too hard for my dreams." The demon laughed, a sound that made my blood run cold. "You think you have a choice? Your soul is mine. But I do love a good fight. So how about this? We box. If you win, you keep your soul. If I win, well, I knew it was stupid. I knew I couldn't win. But what choice did I have? Deal, I said. What followed was the most brutal fight of my life. The demon was fast, impossibly strong. Its four arms were everywhere at once, raining down blows faster than I could block. I fought with everything I had. Every technique, every dirty trick I'd ever learned. But it wasn't enough. Not even close. The last thing I remember is a massive fist coming straight for my face. Then darkness. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. The official story is that I was jumped by a gang. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, the works. The doctors called it a miracle that I survived. But I know the truth. I can feel it. There's something missing inside me, a hollowness that never goes away. I don't box anymore. Can't bring myself to step into a ring. The sport I once loved now fills me with a terror I can't explain. So, that's my story. A cautionary tale, I guess. Be careful what you wish for, and if you ever find yourself face to face with a four-armed demon, just run. Trust me, your soul isn't worth the fight. It was a late October evening. Michael was returning home from an important business meeting in a neighboring city. Tired, he decided to take a shortcut through the old town. The GPS led him through the narrow streets, and soon Michael realized he was lost. Suddenly, his car stalled right at the entrance to an old cemetery. No matter how hard Michael tried, the car would not start. His cell phone didn't work either, not a single signal. Great, Michael muttered. I'll have to find help on foot. He got out of the car and looked around. The only source of light was the full moon hanging over the cemetery. Michael decided to walk through the cemetery. It seemed like the shortest way to the city. As he entered the cemetery grounds, the fog began to thicken around his feet. The silence was oppressive, with only the wind rustling the fallen leaves. Michael sped up his pace, feeling inexplicably anxious. Suddenly he saw the silhouette of a woman near one of the graves. As he approached, Michael froze in shock. It was his late wife, Sarah, who had died 5 years earlier. "Sarah?" he whispered in disbelief. The woman turned, and Michael saw her pale face and sad eyes. "Michael," she said softly, "you finally came." Michael could not believe his eyes. He rubbed them, thinking he was hallucinating, but Sarah was still standing in front of him. "This isn't possible," he mumbled. You're dead." "Yes, I am," Sarah replied with a sad smile. "But we're all here, Michael, waiting for you." His heart sank as he recognized them. They were his children, Emily and Jason, who had died with Sarah in the car accident. "Daddy," they exclaimed joyfully, running up to him. Michael fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He hugged his children, feeling their cold bodies. "How is this possible?" he asked, looking at Sarah. "We were always here, Michael," she replied, "waiting for you. Now we can be together again." Michael felt a strange sense of peace envelop him. He was no longer afraid, cold, or tired. All he wanted was to be with his family. Michael looked at Sarah, and she held out her hand to him. Without hesitation, he took it. At that moment, everything around him dissolved into a bright light. Michael opened his eyes abruptly. He was lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by medical devices. His brother, David, was sitting next to him. "Michael, you're finally awake," David exclaimed with relief. "You had an accident 3 months ago," David explained. "You were in a coma. The doctors didn't give you much hope." Michael slowly realized the reality. The accident, the coma, the dream of meeting his family at the cemetery. Everything was mixed in his head. "I'm so sorry, brother," David said, squeezing his hand. "I know how much you miss them. But you have to move on. It's what they would have wanted." Michael closed his eyes, remembering his strange dream. Was it just a dream? Or was it something more? He did not know the answer, but he felt that this event had changed him forever. When he opened his eyes again, there was a new determination in them. Michael realized that he had been given a second chance at life, and he would use it to do something meaningful, something his family could be proud of.